Rocky Mason stared through the viewport as his ship descended toward Zeltana 5. The massive spaceport dominated the horizon, its sleek, violet architecture a testament to the advanced civilization that built it. He'd seen plenty of alien designs during his years as a Special Forces captain, but the Zeltanans had a flair for the dramatic that put everyone else to shame. "Just a routine repair job," he muttered, adjusting his tool belt. "Get in, fix their quantum drive. Get paid, get out, no complications." The ship's AI chimed. "Warning, local atmospheric interference detected. Recommend manual landing procedures." Of course there's interference. Rocky cracked his knuckles and grabbed the controls. When is anything ever simple in this sector? The descent through the atmosphere rattled his teeth. By the time he touched down on the landing pad, his shirt was soaked with sweat. The spaceport's artificial gravity kicked in as he stepped onto the boarding ramp. Violet-skinned Zeltanan citizens hurried through the crowded terminal, their formal robes flowing like liquid metal. "Terminal access granted," announced a melodic voice. "Welcome to Zeltana 5, Engineer Mason. Please proceed to customs." Rocky shouldered his bag and joined the crowd. The Zeltanans gave him a wide berth. Humans weren't exactly common in this sector. He'd barely made it 10 steps when the crowd suddenly surged backward, forcing him to stumble sideways. "Make way for the royal procession," someone shouted. "The what?" Rocky's boot caught on something, and the world tilted sideways. He caught a glimpse of shocked violet faces as he pitched forward, arms windmilling. His shoulder slammed into something soft, followed by a feminine yelp. Time seemed to slow as he fell. His hands shot out instinctively, grabbing what felt like a waist to steady himself. Another woman gasped. As he finally hit the ground, his other hand landed somewhere that made his blood run cold. Somewhere that definitely wasn't appropriate for public contact. When his vision cleared, Rocky found himself sprawled in the middle of what appeared to be a very expensive, very official-looking procession. 3 stunning Zeltanan women in elaborate ceremonial armor stared down at him with expressions ranging from shock to fury to, was that amusement? "How dare you!" The tallest one, the one he'd apparently grabbed around the waist, had her hand on an energy sword. Her face was a mask of outrage, but there was something else in her eyes. "I am Talisha, first daughter of the Grand Matriarch." "Oh no," Rocky breathed. The shorter woman beside her, the one he'd originally crashed into, adjusted her technical visor with a smirk. Well, well, a human who quite literally falls for Zeltanan women." "I'm Leorin, second daughter, and you, clumsy earthling, have just made this day far more interesting than expected." The third sister, the one he'd accidentally grabbed in the worst possible way, just glared. "Fortunately for you, I'm already married. Otherwise," she left the threat hanging. Rocky scrambled to his feet, holding up his hands. "Ladies, I can explain. This was just a simple accident." "Silence!" The command boomed through the terminal like a thunderclap. The crowd parted, revealing a towering figure that made Rocky's combat instincts scream danger. The Grand Matriarch of Zeltana swept forward, her ceremonial armor crackling with barely contained energy, her eyes fixed on Rocky with the intensity of a targeting laser. "You dare to lay hands upon my daughters?" Her voice could have frozen plasma. "Your Excellency," Rocky began, defaulting to his most diplomatic tone. "This was a complete accident. I simply tripped." "Tripped?" The matriarch's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Into not one, but 3 of my daughters?" A murmur rippled through the gathering crowd. Rocky noticed several guards positioning themselves to block potential escape routes. His special forces training kicked in, automatically cataloging threats and exits, but he forced himself to remain still. Making sudden moves around trigger-happy royal guards was never wise. "Mother," Leorin stepped forward, her technical visor glowing with data. "My sensors indicate he was indeed destabilized by a legitimate gravitational anomaly, though his recovery attempts were rather poorly executed." Her lips twitched with barely suppressed amusement. "Poorly executed?" Talishaw's energy sword hummed to life. "He grabbed me like a common—" Now, sister," Leorin interrupted. "You can't deny his reflexes are impressive. Most humans would have simply face-planted." The matriarch raised her hand, silencing both daughters. Do you understand, Earthman, what your actions mean under Zeltanan law? Rocky's stomach dropped. He'd heard rumors about their marriage customs, but surely they couldn't be serious. I may need clarification on that point, Your Excellency. Physical contact with an unmarried daughter of the royal house constitutes a binding marriage proposal. The matriarch's voice carried throughout the terminal. Contact with multiple daughters. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Wait, Rocky's voice cracked slightly. You're saying because I accidentally touched them, I'm now married? Talisha spat the word like a curse. To both of us. Both. Rocky looked between the sisters. Talisha stood rigid with barely contained rage, while Liarin seemed to be calculating something behind her visor. Indeed, the matriarch's tone could have cut diamond. Unless you wish to refuse, that would of course be considered a mortal insult to the royal house. And if I try to leave, Rocky asked, already knowing the answer, then every bounty hunter and royal enforcer in the sector will hunt you down. The matriarch's smile was predatory. Eventually, Rocky's mind raced. He'd been in tight spots before, but this was approaching absurd. What about the fact that I'm human? Surely there are laws about interspecies marriage. Our laws make no such distinction, Liarin chimed in helpfully. In fact, there are 17 historical precedents of human Zeltanan marriages, though admittedly none quite as spontaneous as this. How fortunate that I was already married, the third sister muttered. 3 would have been excessive. Rocky fought the urge to laugh hysterically. Your Excellency, there must be some way to resolve this without... There is not. The matriarch's tone brooked no argument. You have 3 choices, Earthman. Accept the marriages and join our house, refuse and face execution, or flee and live as hunted prey until we catch you. She paused. Choose quickly. The ceremony must be performed before sunset. Ceremony, Rocky squeaked. Today. Our laws are quite specific about timing, Liarin explained, scrolling through data on her visor. The marriage must be formalized within 1 planetary rotation of initial contact. Talisha finally spoke again, her voice ice cold. I will not share my quarters with him. Nor will I, Liarin agreed, though her tone held more curiosity than disgust. He'll need separate accommodations. Ladies, Rocky tried again, maybe we could discuss this privately. There is nothing to discuss, the matriarch declared. Guards escort my new son-in-law to the ceremonial chambers. He requires preparation. 4 towering Zeltanan warriors materialized around Rocky. Their armor made them look more like combat mechs than guards. One of them grabbed his arm with enough force to remind him that Zeltanan's strength significantly exceeded human norms. Wait! Rocky called out as they began dragging him away. Don't I get a lawyer or something? Oh, you'll have advisors, Liarin called after him. Lots of them. The ceremonial requirements for royal consorts are quite extensive. The last thing Rocky saw before being hauled through an ornate doorway was Talisha and Liarin glaring at each other, while the matriarch watched with an unreadable expression. The next few hours passed in a blur of ceremonial preparations. Rocky was stripped, cleaned, dressed in formal robes that seemed to be made of living metal, and given a crash course in Zeltanan royal protocol by a team of increasingly exasperated advisors. No, no, no! The chief protocol advisor, a rail-thin Zeltanan named Versal, threw up his hands. You bow before speaking the oath, not during... Maybe if the oath wasn't 17 stanzas long, Rocky muttered, trying to keep the ceremonial collar from choking him. The living metal somehow managed to feel both too tight and too loose at the same time. The shortened version is 17 stanzas, Versal corrected. The full version, which thank the ancestors we don't have time for, is 112. Shortened version, right? Rocky rolled his shoulders, trying to get comfortable in the alien formal wear. Any other ways I might accidentally commit myself to more marriages during the ceremony? Versal's violet skin paled slightly. Please do not joke about such things. The last multiple marriage ceremony we conducted was 3 centuries ago, and it ended in a small civil war. Fantastic. Rocky slumped in his chair. Any chance either of my brides might decide to call this off? They cannot. Versal began pacing. The law is absolute. Even the matriarch cannot override it without losing face before the entire sector. And a Zeltanan royal losing face would be worse than death. Yeah, I got that part. Rocky stood up, the robes flowing around him like liquid starlight. So, I'm really doing this? Unless you prefer execution or eternal exile. Versal checked something on his datapad. The ceremony begins in 20 minutes. Please try not to touch anyone else before then. The ceremonial chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows far above. Thousands of Zeltanan nobles filled the tiered seating, their formal wear creating a sea of shifting colors. Rocky stood on a raised platform, trying not to fidget as Versal made last-minute adjustments to his robes. Remember, the advisor whispered, bow, then speak, and try not to look directly at the matriarch's crown. The quantum crystals can be disorienting to human eyes. Before Rocky could respond, music filled the chamber. It wasn't like any wedding march he'd heard before, more like a battle hymn mixed with a physics equation. The crowd rose as one as the grand doors swung open. Talisha entered first, her ceremonial armor somehow even more elaborate than before. She moved like a predator, each step precise and deadly. Her energy sword hung at her hip, its power damped but still humming with potential violence. Liarin followed, her technical visor replaced by what looked like a crown of pure data. Holographic equations shimmered around her as she walked, her expression caught between scientific curiosity and barely concealed irritation. The matriarch herself brought up the rear, her presence filling the chamber like a storm about to break. The quantum crown Versal had warned about blazed above her head, and Rocky quickly looked away before the impossible geometries could give him a headache. As they took their positions on the platform, Rocky noticed something else. His new brides were standing as far apart as protocol would allow, and neither would look directly at the other. Great. Not only was he in an accidental arranged marriage, but his wives already hated each other. The ceremony itself was mercifully shorter than the rehearsal, though Rocky still stumbled over a few of the more complex pronunciations. No one drew weapons, which Versal assured him later was a good sign. When it was done, he found himself legally bound to two of the most powerful women in the sector, neither of whom seemed particularly thrilled about the arrangement. The union is sealed, the matriarch declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. Let any who would challenge it speak now. The silence was deafening. Rocky couldn't decide if that was reassuring or terrifying. Then by the ancient laws of Zeltana, I present my daughters and their new consort. May their union bring strength to our house. The matriarch's eyes fixed on Rocky. And may their consort prove worthy of the honor bestowed upon him. As the crowd began filing out, Rocky noticed his wives had already vanished through separate doors. The matriarch remained, studying him with an unreadable expression. So, he ventured, should I be asking about honeymoon customs or? You have much to learn about our ways, she said finally, starting with the fact that humor is not always appropriate. Noted. Rocky straightened his spine. Your Excellency, I want you to know that despite the unusual circumstances, I take this responsibility seriously. Do you? She moved closer, her presence overwhelming. Then know this, Earthman. My daughters are more precious to me than all the worlds in this sector. If you bring them harm either through action or negligence, there will be nowhere in the galaxy you can hide from my wrath. I understand. No, she smiled, showing teeth that seemed just a bit too sharp. You don't, but you will. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Yes? Welcome to the family. Rocky's first morning as a royal consort began with an alarm he didn't set, and a message floating in holographic text before his eyes. Combat training, East Wing Arena. Now, Talisha. He barely had time to pull on the form-fitting training suit left in his quarters when another message overlapped the first. Engineering lab emergency. Quantum core destabilizing. Need immediate assistance? Liarin. Perfect, Rocky muttered, running his hand through his hair. Not even breakfast first. He headed for the engineering lab, A destabilizing quantum core seemed slightly more urgent than combat training. The corridors of the royal palace were a maze of shifting violet metal, and he was pretty sure some of them rearranged themselves when he wasn't looking. The engineering lab doors hissed open to reveal Leorin bent over a complex array of holographic displays. She didn't look up as he entered. "You're late," she said, fingers dancing through the data streams. "And wearing combat gear?" "Your sister scheduled training this morning." "Did she?" Leorin's tone was too innocent. "How inconvenient. Well, since you're here." She gestured at a chair seemingly grown from the floor itself. "Sit. I need to calibrate your neural interface." Rocky stayed standing. "What about the quantum core emergency?" "Oh, that." She waved dismissively. "Minor fluctuation. Already stabilized. But while you're here..." The door slammed open. Tali Shah stood in the entrance, her training armor gleaming and her energy sword humming ominously. "Sister," she said coldly, "you're interfering with the consort's combat training." "Am I?" Leorin finally looked up, smiling sweetly. "I thought I was preventing a potential quantum cascade failure that could have vaporized half the palace. My mistake." "There was no cascade risk." Tali Shah's eyes narrowed. "I checked the readings myself." "Did you?" "I wasn't aware warrior training included quantum engineering." Rocky stepped between them before the temperature could drop any further. "Ladies, maybe we could work out a schedule." "Stay out of this," they said in unison, then glared at each other for agreeing. "The consort requires combat training," Tali Shah insisted. "The royal family has enemies." "The consort requires neural calibration," Leorin countered. "Unless you want him accidentally activating palace systems with stray thoughts." "I have a name, you know," Rocky muttered. They ignored him. "Fine." Tali Shah's hand tightened on her sword hilt. "Complete your calibrations, but he trains with me after." "That could take hours," Leorin protested. "I need to map his entire neural architecture." 2 hours, Tali Shah declared. "Then he's mine." She turned and stalked out, leaving Rocky alone with a fuming Leorin. "Well," he said brightly, "this is going great." "Sit," Leorin commanded, pointing at the chair, "and try not to think too hard about my sister. It interferes with the readings." The next few hours set the pattern for Rocky's new life. If he wasn't sparring with Tali Shah, who seemed determined to turn him into a warrior worthy of legend, he was helping Leorin with increasingly complex engineering projects, which somehow always required his immediate attention. Between sessions, he began noticing oddities: guard patrols out of sequence, communication arrays activated at strange hours, unmarked ships arriving and departing without proper clearance. "Your palace security has some interesting gaps," he mentioned to Tali Shah during one particularly brutal training session. She slammed him to the mat, energy blade hovering near his throat. "Explain." "Well, for one thing," he wheezed, "that maintenance shaft outside my quarters? Pretty sure it's being used for unauthorized access. Found some scuff marks that shouldn't be there." Tali Shah's eyes narrowed. She deactivated her blade and helped him up. "Show me." The investigation revealed not just scuff marks, but sophisticated surveillance equipment hidden in the walls. Tali Shah's expression grew darker with each discovery. "This shouldn't be possible," she muttered. "Our security is absolute." "No security is absolute," Rocky said, examining a particularly well-hidden sensor. "Trust me, I used to specialize in proving that point." Before she could respond, an explosion rocked the palace. Alarms screamed to life as smoke began pouring from the direction of the engineering labs. "Leorin!" they shouted in unison, already running. They found Leorin in her lab, coughing but alive. The explosion had destroyed a prototype quantum regulator she'd been working on. Rocky noticed the blast pattern didn't match a simple mechanical failure. "Someone tried to kill you," he said, examining the wreckage while Tali Shah secured the perimeter. "Nonsense." Leorin waved away his concern, then stumbled slightly. Rocky caught her arm, steadying her. For a moment she leaned against him, her usual composure cracking. It was just a calibration error. A calibration error that bypassed 3 layers of safety protocols? Rocky kept his arm around her waist, noticing she made no move to pull away. "I may not be a quantum engineer, but I know sabotage when I see it." "He's right," Tali Shah returned, her expression grim. This was deliberate. She paused, seeing Rocky still supporting her sister, and something flickered across her face. Concern? Jealousy? Both? Over the next few weeks, the assassination attempts grew bolder. A training drone malfunctioned during one of Talishaw's combat sessions, its safety protocols disabled. Rocky tackled her out of the way just as it opened fire with very real plasma bolts. They landed hard, Rocky on top of her. For a moment, they stayed frozen, faces inches apart, hearts racing from more than just adrenaline. Quick reflexes, Talishaw murmured, her usual warrior's demeanor softening slightly. Special forces training, Rocky replied, suddenly very aware of how close they were. Though usually I don't have such compelling reasons to use it. A ghost of a smile touched her lips before she remembered herself and pushed him away. We should check the drone's programming. The investigation revealed more evidence of internal sabotage. Someone with high-level access was trying to eliminate the royal sisters. But why? Rocky found himself spending more time with both wives, though rarely together. The attempts on their lives had shifted something in their relationships. The initial hostility was giving way to something else. Leorin began inviting him to late-night engineering sessions that involved more talking than actual work. She was brilliant, wickedly funny when she let her guard down, and had a way of looking at him over her technical displays that made his pulse quicken. "You're not what I expected," she admitted one night, as they sat surrounded by holographic star charts. "When you first fell into our lives, you thought I was just a clumsy human who'd ruined your day? Something like that?" She moved closer, adjusting a projection. Her hand brushed his, lingering longer than necessary. "I'm glad I was wrong." Meanwhile, Talishaw's combat training evolved into something more intimate. She began teaching him Zeltanan martial arts forms that were as much dance as fighting. Their sparring sessions grew longer, with more moments of charged silence and lingering contact. "Your form is improving," she said during one such session, adjusting his stance with gentle hands. "You learn quickly." "Good teacher," Rocky replied, trying to focus on the movements rather than the warmth of her touch. "Though I'm starting to think these lessons aren't just about combat." She stepped back, but not before he caught the flush darkening her violet skin. Everything is combat in its own way. The rivalry between the sisters remained, but it was changing. Their competition for his attention became less aggressive, more playful. They still scheduled conflicting appointments, but now it felt more like a game than warfare. However, the mounting evidence of conspiracy cast a shadow over everything. Rocky began compiling data, cross-referencing ship movements, communication patterns, and security breaches. A pattern emerged pointing to something far worse than simple assassination attempts. He was in Leorin's lab, reviewing security footage, when she entered without her usual electronic announcements. "You should be sleeping," she said, moving to stand behind his chair. "So should you." He gestured at the displays. "Look at these shipping manifests. Someone's been smuggling quantum tech off-world. High-grade stuff." "Interesting." She leaned over his shoulder, her breath warm against his ear. "But not why I'm here." Rocky turned to face her, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, I've been thinking," she said, perching on the edge of his console, "about our arrangement, about you. Dangerous topics. Very." She smiled, the expression both brilliant and slightly predatory. "You've proven yourself more capable than anyone expected. More intriguing. High praise from a quantum genius. Don't ruin it with humor." But she was still smiling as she leaned closer. "I'm trying to say..." The lab's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. Alarms blared throughout the palace. "Security breach in the royal quarters," an automated voice announced. "Multiple hostile signatures detected." They shared a look of horror. "Talisha," they said together, already running. They sprinted through the palace corridors, alarms still blaring. Palace guards rushed past them, energy weapons charged. Rocky's combat instincts screamed that something was wrong. The guard patterns were too organized, too precise for a surprise attack. "This isn't random," he shouted to Leorin as they ran. "The timing..." "Just after shift change," she agreed, her technical visor materializing as she ran. "When security protocols reset." They rounded the corner to the royal quarters and found chaos. Energy weapon fire lit up the corridor in brilliant flashes. Through the chaos, Rocky spotted Talisha holding off 3 attackers with her energy sword, her nightwear offering little protection. "Get down!" Rocky tackled Leorin as a stray blast sizzled over their heads. He rolled to his feet, snatching up a fallen guard's weapon. "Can you access the security systems?" "Already on it." Leorin's fingers danced through holographic controls. "But something's wrong. The systems aren't responding correctly." Rocky squeezed off 2 shots, dropping one of Talisha's attackers. "Because this is an inside job. They have the codes." Talisha's blade whirled in a deadly arc, taking down another assailant. "Less talking, more fighting." Rocky grinned despite the situation. Even in combat, she couldn't resist giving orders. He moved to her side, covering her exposed flank as more attackers poured in. "Your form is still sloppy," she commented, deflecting a blast. "Really? Combat critique now? When better?" She spun, her blade intersecting perfectly with his shot to create a cascading energy effect that dropped 3 attackers at once. "Show off," he muttered, but couldn't help admiring the move. "If you two are done flirting," Leorin called from her position, "I've almost got control of the security grid. But these override codes, they're royal family signatures." "What?" Talisha's momentary distraction nearly cost her as a blast grazed her shoulder. She hissed in pain but kept fighting. Rocky's mind raced. Royal codes, perfect timing, sophisticated tech. It's not just an inside job. This is a coup attempt. As if to confirm his words, the palace lights suddenly went dark. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in blood-red light. "Full lockdown initiated," announced an automated voice. "All sectors sealed." "That's not possible." Leorin's fingers flew faster. "Only the matriarch has that authority." "Unless someone's using her codes," Rocky said grimly. "Where is she?" "Emergency bunker, standard protocol," Talisha answered, finishing the last attacker with a precise thrust. "But if this is a coup..." "She's walking into a trap," they all realized simultaneously. Rocky assessed their situation quickly. They were cut off from the main palace, surrounded by potentially compromised guards and running out of time. "Leorin, can you get us through the lockdown?" She smiled, and it was all brilliant calculation. "Please, give me 2 minutes." "Talisha, you're injured." "I can fight," she insisted, though her shoulder was clearly paining her. "Never doubted it." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "But we need to be smart about this. Whoever's behind this wants both of you dead. They've been trying for weeks. The accidents," she realized, "the sabotage, it was all preparation for this." "Exactly. They needed to know our response patterns, our weaknesses." He touched her uninjured shoulder gently. "We can't give them what they want." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "What's your plan?" Before he could answer, Leorin called out triumphantly. "Got it. Secondary systems responding. I can get us to the emergency bunker through the maintenance tunnels. The ones I noticed being used for unauthorized access," Rocky said. "They'll be expecting that." "Yes, but they won't be expecting this." Leorin's fingers made one final gesture, and suddenly alarms began blaring throughout the entire palace. Multiple breaches, all sectors. They'll have to split their forces. "Clever," Talisha admitted, with something like pride. "I have my moments, sister." Leorin joined them, her visor displaying a maze of tunnel routes. "Now, shall we save our mother and our kingdom?" They moved quickly through the maintenance tunnels, Rocky taking point while Leorin guided them via her technical feeds. Talisha covered their rear, her injury not slowing her reactions. "The coup leaders will be in the bunker with Mother," she said as they moved. "Elite guards, probably some council members." "People we trusted," Leorin added bitterly. "People who think they can take advantage of our situation," Rocky said. "The marriages, the rivalry between you two. They probably thought it would tear the family apart. Instead, it brought us something unexpected," Talisha said softly. Leorin glanced at her sister, then at Rocky. "Very unexpected." They reached a junction near the bunker. Rocky held up a hand for silence, hearing voices ahead. He peered around the corner and quickly pulled back. 8 guards, heavy weapons, and... He hesitated. "What is it?" Talisha demanded. Your aunt, Council Member Verlana. The sisters exchanged shocked looks. Mother's own sister, Liarin whispered. Makes sense, Rocky said. She'd have access to all the codes, know all the protocols, and with both of you dead and the matriarch tragically killed by terrorists, she'd be next in line, Talisha finished. The perfect coup. Not perfect. Liarin's smile was dangerous. She forgot one thing. What's that? She didn't account for you. She looked at Rocky with an intensity that made his breath catch. For what you'd mean to us. To the family, Talisha added quickly, though her expression said otherwise. Rocky felt something shift between the three of them, an acknowledgement of feelings they'd all been dancing around, but now wasn't the time. Right, he said, checking his weapon. So, ladies, ready to crash your aunt's party? Wait, Liarin grabbed Rocky's arm before he could move. I have a better idea. Her fingers danced through holographic controls. The bunker's environmental systems are still responding to my commands, and I just happen to have access to the palace's experimental nerve gas delivery system. Experimental what now? Rocky stared at her. Non-lethal, she assured him. Mostly, probably. Talisha shook her head. Too risky. Mother is in there. Actually, Rocky said slowly, an idea forming, we might be able to use this. Your aunt thinks you two are still at each other's throats, right? Both sisters looked at him sharply. What are you suggesting? How's your acting? He grinned. Because I have a plan that's either brilliant or completely insane. Minutes later, shouts and energy weapon fire erupted from two different corridors leading to the bunker. Verlana and her guards turned toward the commotion just as Talisha and Liarin burst in from opposite directions, apparently fighting each other. This is all your fault, Talisha roared. Her energy soared, clashing with a force field Liarin had erected. My fault? If you hadn't been so obsessed with your warrior pride. Enough! Verlana's voice cut through their argument. I see you finally turned on each other, just as expected. Aunt Verlana, Liarin spat. I should have known you'd be behind this. Someone had to save our empire from this farce. Verlana gestured to her guards. Your mother's weakness in allowing these marriages has made us a laughingstock across the sector. Where is she? Talisha demanded. Verlana smiled coldly. Safe. For now. Though I'm afraid there's going to be a tragic accident soon. After all, how could she survive when her own daughters killed each other in their jealous rage? And what about their husband? Rocky's voice came from directly behind her. Before Verlana could turn, he had her in a chokehold, his stolen guard's armor dissolving to reveal his normal clothes beneath. The annoying human? Verlana laughed despite her position. Please, you're nothing but a pawn. Her words cut off as Liarin's force field suddenly expanded, filling the room with swirling purple gas. The guards dropped instantly. Verlana struggled for a moment before going limp in Rocky's arms. Non-lethal, Liarin confirmed, checking readings on her visor, though she'll have quite the headache when she wakes up. Mother! Talisha was already rushing to a sealed door at the back of the bunker. She placed her hand on the scanner, and it slid open to reveal the matriarch, looking irritated but unharmed. Well, she said, surveying the unconscious bodies, I see my new son-in-law has been keeping busy. Your Excellency, Rocky began, I can explain. No need. She stepped over her sister's unconscious form. I suspected Verlana might try something like this, though I didn't expect her to be quite so ambitious. You knew? The sisters asked in unison. Of course. Why do you think I was so quick to accept your marriages? The matriarch's smile was eerily similar to the one she'd given Rocky after the ceremony. I needed someone who could unite my daughters and expose the conspiracy. Someone with both the skills and the personal qualities to succeed. Rocky stared at her. You planned this? The whole thing. The marriages were genuine law, she assured him, but perhaps I had my guards adjust the artificial gravity in that particular section of the spaceport at that particular moment. Mother! Liarin sounded scandalized and impressed at the same time. A leader must think ahead, the matriarch said serenely, and I must say you've exceeded my expectations, son-in-law. Not only did you uncover the plot, but you've managed to get my daughters working together instead of against each other. Rocky looked between Talisha and Liarin, seeing the same realization in their eyes. The competition, the rivalry, it had all transformed into something else entirely. About that, he said carefully, I think we need to talk about our arrangement. Indeed. The matriarch raised an eyebrow. Yes. He moved to stand between his wives. Because I'm not choosing between them, and I don't think they want me to anymore. Talishah's hand found his. Liarin took the other. Is this true? The matriarch asked her daughters. He is. Acceptable, Talishah said, though her grip tightened. More than acceptable, Liarin added, her usual sass softened by genuine emotion. The matriarch looked at them for a long moment, then laughed. Well, it seems my plan worked even better than intended. She turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Rocky? Yes? Try not to fall into any more princesses. I think 2 is quite enough. As she left, Rocky turned to his wives. So, what now? Now, Talishah said, we have a kingdom to run. And a marriage to figure out, Liarin added. Rocky pulled them both closer. I think we're off to a pretty good start. The days following the coup attempt brought a new rhythm to life in the palace. Gone were the competing schedules and sabotaged appointments. Instead, Rocky found himself navigating something far more complex, a genuine 3-way relationship. You're in my spot, Liarin announced one evening, finding Rocky and Talishah curled up in the royal viewing chamber, watching the stellar storms that lit up Zeltana V's night sky. There's room for 3, Rocky patted the space beside him. Talishah, who once would have bristled at sharing, simply shifted to make space. Liarin settled in, her technical visor for once absent, leaving her face unobscured. Mother's scheduled another family dinner. Is this one mandatory? Talishah groaned. The last one lasted 6 hours. All royal family dinners are mandatory, Rocky mimicked the matriarch's tone, making both sisters laugh. Though maybe this time she'll skip the full recitation of family history. Unlikely, Liarin snuggled closer. She's determined to educate you in proper Zeltanan culture. I thought that was your job, he turned to Talishah. Aren't we still doing cultural combat training? Combat is only part of the training. Talishah's fingers traced patterns on his arm. Though you're improving, almost worthy of a royal consort. Almost? He raised an eyebrow. I seem to recall winning our last match. You cheated, but she was smiling as she said it. It's not cheating to use distraction as a tactical advantage. Kissing your opponent is not a recognized combat technique. Perhaps it should be, Liarin suggested. I'd certainly like to see that move demonstrated again. The family dinners, while long, had become less formal affairs. The matriarch still presided at the head of the table, but there was genuine warmth in her eyes when she watched her daughters and their shared husband interact. The council is pleased with how you handled the trade negotiations, she commented during one such dinner, though your methods were unconventional. You mean because Rocky convinced the Orion delegation to sign by challenging their champion to a drinking contest? Liarin smirked. While reciting quantum equations, Talishah added proudly. That you taught me, Rocky pointed out, though I'm still not sure about the part where reality starts to bend if you say them backwards. That's because you're still thinking in linear time, Liarin patted his hand. We'll work on that. Their sleeping arrangements had evolved naturally. The massive royal suite had been modified to accommodate all 3 of them, though they often ended up tangled together in the center of the bed anyway. Your feet are cold, Talishah complained one night. Blame your sister, Rocky mumbled. She's been experimenting with the environmental controls again. I'm optimizing the sleep cycle atmosphere, Liarin defended from his other side. The slight temperature variance promotes deeper REM states. Is that why the ceiling keeps changing colors? No, that's just because I was bored. They made it work, this strange new family. Rocky learned to read their moods, to know when Talishah needed a sparring partner to work out her frustrations, or when Liarin required someone to listen to her explain impossible physics for hours. They, in turn, learned to share not just his time, but his heart. The matriarch watched it all with satisfaction, her plan having yielded results far beyond her expectations. Her daughters had found not just a consort, but a true partner, and their strength together made the royal family stronger than ever. The news of the first pregnancy came during one of their now regular family dinners. Liarin had been unusually quiet, poking at her food instead of launching into her usual detailed explanations of her latest experiments. "Are you feeling all right?" Rocky asked, noticing she hadn't touched the quantum berry dessert, her favorite. Actually, she looked up, a mix of nervousness and joy in her expression. "I've been running some tests, personal ones." Tali Shaw dropped her fork. "Sister, are you?" "Yes." Liarin's hand went to her stomach. "According to my calculations, approximately 6 weeks." The matriarch's pleased smile lit up the entire room. "The first royal great-grandchild. This calls for celebration." Rocky sat frozen, processing the news. "I'm going to be a father?" "Obviously," Liarin rolled her eyes, but her voice was soft. "Unless you think I've been conducting secret quantum experiments with someone else?" He pulled her into a kiss, not caring about royal dinner protocol. When they broke apart, he noticed Tali Shaw watching them with an unreadable expression. Later that night in their shared quarters, Tali Shaw was unusually subdued during their evening combat practice. "Your guard is down," Rocky noted, easily deflecting her strikes. "That's not like you." She lowered her training sword. "I should be happy for her. But I'm—" She struggled with the admission. "Jealous, not of her and you, but of this, a child. I never thought I'd want—" Rocky drew her close. "Who says you can't have the same? A warrior's life can include family," he finished. "You're proof of that. Your mother raised 3 warrior daughters." "3?" She tensed. "Ah, you're thinking of Vera." Their third sister, the one who'd been married when Rocky's infamous stumble occurred, had been notably absent from recent family gatherings. "I haven't seen her since the wedding," Rocky admitted. "Is everything all right?" Tali Shaw sighed. "Her marriage, it's complicated. Her husband is a high-ranking military commander, often away on campaigns. She chose duty over love." "Unlike us?" She smiled then, a rare, full smile that transformed her warrior's facade. "Unlike us." 2 months later, during another combat training session, Tali Shaw knocked Rocky flat on his back, then immediately ran to the refresher to be sick. "Really, sister?" Liarin laughed when they told her the news, her own pregnancy now clearly visible. "You had to upstage my morning sickness with combat morning sickness?" The palace buzzed with excitement over the dual pregnancies. The matriarch was practically glowing with satisfaction, already planning elaborate naming ceremonies. But amidst the joy, Rocky noticed something else. Subtle signs of strain in the palace's military quarters, where Vera maintained her residence. "We should invite her to dinner," he suggested one evening, as they all lounged in their chambers. Liarin was tinkering with some sort of pregnancy monitoring device, while Tali Shaw polished her sword collection. "Vera?" Liarin looked up from her work. "She rarely accepts." "She's hurting," Tali Shaw said quietly. "Her husband hasn't returned from the outer colonies in months. There are rumors that he's found companionship elsewhere," Liarin finished. "Political marriages often end that way." Rocky thought about their own marriage. Begun as political accident, transformed into something real. Send the invitation. Family should stick together. To everyone's surprise, Vera accepted. She arrived at the family dinner looking every inch the military commander's wife. But there was a weariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Sisters," she greeted formally, then turned to Rocky. "Brother-in-law, I hear congratulations are in order." "Twice over," Liarin patted her growing belly. "So I heard." Something flickered across Vera's face. Longing, regret. The dinner began stiffly but gradually warmed as old sisterly bonds reasserted themselves. Rocky watched as Vera slowly relaxed, drawn into Liarin's excited baby plans and Tali Shaw's military gossip. "Your husband should be proud," the matriarch said during dessert. 2 royal heirs at once. 3, Vera said quietly. All conversation stopped. "Sister?" Tali Shaw leaned forward. "I'm pregnant too." Vera's laugh was bitter. "Isn't it ironic? My husband hasn't been home in 8 months. And now—" "Who?" The matriarch's voice was deadly quiet. "My aide. A good man who actually sees me as more than a political convenience. Vera lifted her chin. I've already filed for dissolution of my marriage. Silence fell over the table. In Zeltanan society, dissolution was rare, especially among the nobility, but infidelity was considered an acceptable cause. And if her husband had been unfaithful first, well, the matriarch said finally, it seems I'll have 3 great-grandchildren to welcome. She fixed Vera with a stern look. I trust this aide of yours is worthy of the royal family? He is, Vera's relief was palpable. He's actually here tonight, waiting in the gardens. Bring him in, the matriarch commanded. If he's to be part of this family, he should start getting used to our dinners now. As servants rushed to set another place, Rocky caught his wives exchanging glances. Their unconventional marriage had opened doors, changed traditions. Now their sister would have a chance at real happiness too. The birth began with Leorin, who had announced her pregnancy first. She went into labor during one of her quantum experiments, maintaining remarkable composure at first. The contractions are following a predictable wave pattern, she informed the medical team, before a particularly strong one made her grab Rocky's hand. Though perhaps my calculations were slightly off. 2 months later, it was Talishah's turn. True to her warrior nature, she approached childbirth as she did combat training. This is just another form of battle, she declared, though her grip on Rocky's hand suggested otherwise. One with a very specific objective. Vera's twins arrived last, completing the new generation of royal children. Her military precision served her well during the delivery, though even her famous discipline cracked a bit during the final moments. This spacing of the births actually worked better for the palace, allowing them to focus their full attention and resources on each new arrival. The matriarch was particularly pleased, as it meant she could fully participate in each birth and subsequent naming ceremony. In the following months, the palace adapted to its newest residents. Each birth brought its own unique challenges and joys. Leorin's son, the firstborn, showed an early affinity for anything that glowed or hummed. She designed an entire suite of quantum-enhanced baby toys, much to Rocky's concern. Are you sure it's safe for him to be playing with dimensional probability? He asked, watching their son somehow turn his rattle into a minor space-time anomaly. Perfectly safe, Leorin assured him. I've calculated all possible outcomes. There's only a 0.03% chance of accidental teleportation. 2 months later, Talishah's daughter arrived, announcing her presence with a cry that made the palace guard stand at attention. From day one, she showed her mother's fierce spirit. She's already trying to grab my training sword, Talishah reported proudly when their daughter was barely able to sit up. Maybe we should start with something less lethal, Rocky suggested. Like stuffed animals? The stuffed animals are already equipped with basic combat training programs, Leorin chimed in. I made them myself. Vera's twins completed the royal nursery, their arrival bringing a new dynamic to the family. Her new husband proved to be an excellent father, and their relationship helped heal old wounds. The matriarch made sure all her great-grandchildren spent time together, fostering bonds that would keep the family strong. As the children grew, their personalities emerged. Leorin's son combined his mother's brilliant mind with Rocky's tendency to find trouble, resulting in several memorable incidents involving unauthorized quantum experiments in the royal playroom. Talishah's daughter became the self-appointed protector of her cousins, already showing leadership skills that made both her mother's and the matriarch beam with pride. Though her method of conflict resolution tended to involve more combat stances than diplomatic discussion. The twins brought balance to the group, often mediating between their cousins' quantum accidents and warrior training sessions. They inherited both their mother's military precision and their father's diplomatic skills, making them natural peacemakers. Family dinners became even more chaotic but infinitely more joyful. The matriarch presided over it all with satisfaction, watching her elaborate plan bear fruit in ways even she hadn't anticipated. You've created quite the dynasty, Rocky commented to her one evening as they watched the children play. We all did, she corrected him. Your stumble might have been arranged, but everything that followed, the love, the unity, the strength, that was real. That was earned. Years passed, and the royal family of Zeltana flourished. Rocky mastered the art of balancing time between his wives, though they all preferred spending time together anyway. The children grew strong and wise, each in their own way combining the best of their diverse heritage. Leorin continued her quantum research, occasionally using her family as willing or unwilling test subjects for her more benign experiments. Talisha maintained the Royal Guard's excellence while teaching all the children basic combat skills. Just in case, and she always said. Vera found her own happiness, her new marriage becoming a model for how traditional roles could evolve without losing their value. The sisters' bond grew stronger than ever, their past rivalry transformed into deep appreciation for their different strengths. And Rocky? He finally learned to navigate the palace without getting lost, mostly mastered the formal protocols, and only occasionally had to be reminded not to make jokes during official ceremonies. Though he never quite got the hang of quantum physics, much to Leorin's eternal amusement. But most importantly, he found something he never knew he was looking for. A home among the stars, with 2 wives who completed him in different ways, and a family that was perfectly, wonderfully unconventional. The story of the human who stumbled into a royal marriage became legend, told and retold across the sector.